What's been knobbing on your radar?
I don't know, knob. What's on your radar?
I was thinking of scientism. You were talking about that before earlier, right?
No kidding. I was talking about scientism because I saw this great documentary on YouTube about C.S. Lewis, and he was talking about scientism back when, and that was one of his biggest fears. To be honest.
What do you mean by scientism?
Scientism, like the religion of science, like, oh my God, science is a religion. We have to believe, like, wholeheartedly. And it's gone out of hand, and I think that's what's the main problem today is, like, there's too much scientism.
People confuse science and religion, right?
That's right, yeah.
Like, believe the experts kind of thing.
That's right. So only the few experts, or there's like a distortion of science and its methodology, and there's, when you start censoring other scientists and you start censoring the dialogue or the questioning or the skepticism of science, that's when we have a big problem. And I think that's what's knobbing on my radar right now, really bad.
That is good. That is
bad. But we do have, now, you told me about Stalin, and you told me about a new work called...
Oh, yeah. They have something like that in Eastern Europe, right?
Yeah.
From Trofim Lysenkoism, right?
Lysenkoism,
yeah. That's, when they refused, because it can bounce the other way, you know what I mean? Like, they can refuse, like, new types of science. So, on the one hand, we can embrace the new science without, knowing, and it becomes some kind of a cult, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not tested, right?
Yeah.
So you need to have experimentation. You need to question it, because that's what real science is. And you can check out the documentary below, the full documentary, because they make a great point that science works by scrutinizing the environment.
That's right.
It's not like the first thing that you find out is truth. Yeah. Remember when they used to give like cocaine to kids or DTT? They used to spray kids to DTT.
Yeah, that's
or
right.
Remember when they used to smoke? The doctors would offer camels in commercials.
Yeah.
So it's not like, it's always kind of changing, right? But so it doesn't have to be like science has changed, and not only the person at the top, the experts tell you that, but anybody can find out. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
He makes a great point in the documentary. So going back to Lysenkoism, it was this guy Trofim Lysenko who in Eastern Europe, in Russia, who refused the genetics, and they had their own system because it was the capitalist. The system, they refused everything that came from the West, right? Because they didn't accept their own capitalist way, right? Their capitalist way. So they wanted to get their own science, right? But it was really a pseudoscience, which led, like, this guy in this type of science, because that's what it does. It actually kills more people than it claims to save. So it does get really destructive. It can be really destructive in the wrong hands, because I've lived through communism, and I've seen it happen that way. That where injections or things like that were, in the 80s was the and you've seen the movie. There's a movie about it with abortions, where abortions were banned, right?
That's
and
right.
The people would do it. That's also has to do with science, right? Because they claim that they have the power. So it does science in the wrong hands. It can be like, because it's the right science at the end of the day. It's a tool.
Well, I mean,
right?
you look at the SS Reich and what they're doing as well. Eugenics was a form of science. People don't realize that's pseudoscience. They believe that if you were from a certain genetic stock, that was the genetic, the evolution of man, and that we should be able to. Right. And I think what also the thing about science is what C.S. Lewis was talking about. It dehumanizes. Sometimes if you base your whole life upon the scientific method, you can actually reduce the human being to nothingness, as if they were not important. And then we just become like cattle. We become like just stock. We become like...
I know, man. So, I agree.
And I think science, like any other discipline, and I think that's what C.S. Lewis was saying, that it should be available to scrutiny just as much as any other discipline in the world. So any other profession, like including medicine, including engineering, because science has got like so many disciplines.
Yeah, people usually say believe in science as if it like it's a religion. It's not. You can't believe in science, man.
We believe in the almighty Fauci and Teresa Tam. Hallelujah. It seems like they claim themselves to be saints.
It's like
saints of science, like
it's people. That's where they see it, right? It's like formal versus informal. Only certain outlets or certain people are telling the truth. Others are not. No, it's not like that, right?
Yeah.
Anybody can say something, and the truth can be doesn't. Truth doesn't rely on the group, right? Like 99% of people can be wrong, right?
Yeah.
It's like best case, and that's a fallacy unto itself called the bandwagon fallacy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And the best example is back in the time of Galileo when everybody thought the Earth was flat.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, they were all wrong. Only one person, Galileo, was right. You know what's very interesting about that, eh? Speaking of that, you know when the church said that they were right, and they were like, oh, sorry, actually we're wrong by outcasting Galileo.
That's right.
You know when they actually admitted? 1994. So it took the church.
1994.
Yeah, it took the church like
Wow.
300-400 years to admit that. I get it why on this side, people are like, man, science is religion, right? Because they look at the not the religion itself, but I look at the structure of a church, and they that's what they call most people that reject that, they call it organized religion. Right?
Organized religion, yeah.
Nobody's against Jesus. It's impossible to be against the religion itself because the religion itself is good, right? But it's always used in the wrong hands, right?
That's right.
In the hands of the state, religion becomes a tool, right?
That's right.
Not in the metaphysic itself, not in the religion in itself, right? If you're religious, it's not a tool; it's a political tool, and that's why Europeans, as a general rule, split church and state, right? Because they realize that as a tool, as a political tool, religion doesn't work anymore. Because let's be honest, that's what it was used, right?
Exactly.
And a lot of times it wasn't used for his beliefs, right? And the kings from Charlemagne to Henry to all these bad boys of Western Europe, right? They used it as it's not just Europeans, all across the world. Religion can be used as a tool, right? That's absolutely true. So we want people to understand that we're not against science, we're not against religion, right? But we want for people to make their own choice individually,
That's
and
right.
to understand that there's a difference between the two, and not to put them together, right? Because political power it relies on both, even though it's not as strong as in Western Europe as it is in Eastern Europe and other countries around the world.
Like it's funny. It's I'm scrolling through this because it's science, pseudoscience. Okay, science says follows the evidence wherever it leads. Okay,
Embraces criticism.
and now what does pseudoscience say? You see that?
Yeah, science is hostile to criticism, right?
Yeah.
Pseudoscience is, it's what, and there are many things that are pseudoscience. I was reading about that the other day, right? It's like feng shui and, all this stuff that they say the acupuncture is, in some cases probably worse, the pseudoscience, because, it can be instances that this so-called pseudoscience works in some instances, right? There are instances where people, they prayed and stuff like that, and they got better or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So there is always, but you have to live with the tension, or as Jordan Peterson says, you have to live with the tension.
Yeah.
You have to live with the tension. Yes, that's the things, the left and the right. The idea of things being binary. Has nothing to do with reality.
That's right.
Has nothing to do with sex, right?
That's right.
It's because we experience reality outside via our five senses, and we also experience a reality which is inborn, because it's been proven that babies before being born dream. So where do those dreams come from if they have no life experience, right?
That's right.
So there is two sides of us, which is binary, so to speak, as absorbing reality, right? And this way, this is what binary comes from, right? And that's where the same binarity is expressed in the zeros and ones that we see in the computers. And that's how we see it today. That's science, baby.
So that's science. But see, right now what we're experiencing is pseudoscience, because everybody's hostile to the criticism if you try to criticize the narrative. And I like this one right here. It starts with a conclusion, then works backwards to confirm their conclusion. Well, that's not science. Science is like you have to keep by the process. Yeah, that's complete bias.
Bias, yeah.
You're creating an illusion of science.
It's the easy way, right? So you have a conclusion, and then you start with conclusion, be like, and then it's called you find the bias everywhere, right? Confirmation bias, they call it, right?
Yeah, I like this right here. It says science uses precise terminology with clear definitions. And then, of course, pseudoscience has used vague jargon to confuse, not to evade and evade as well. They use it to evade as well the real. So I like this one. Claims are conservative and tentative. Grandiose claims then go beyond the evidence. That's pseudoscience. I've noticed that. Way beyond that, like inconvenient truth. All these other, when it comes to the environment, we're going way beyond the evidence as well. these grandiose claims that are just absolutely preposterous. And I think it is to scare, and a tactic to scare people.
When there's a lot of money at hand, they have to, right? Because people have invested money. We all know, hence the old saying, follow the money, right?
Yeah.
So that is the thing, right, with science. And that's very interesting what, C.S. Lewis said, is that at the end, whenever you have money, you're going to have corruptions, right? Because it's people are going to be interested. It's going to be, all sorts of people that are interested in making money, right? So that's the thing with science. Did you know, by the way, the most scientific inventions come from the army? Because to come up with a new invention, like the internet itself, the internet itself is started with the army, right? It's because it's very expensive to have really far ahead. You need to have billionaires like like Elon Musk and these guys, because they have the money to. But otherwise people you will not have the money to pay for all these experiments.
That's right.
It does cost a lot of money, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So when you put a lot of money, people expect a return to an investment. So
that's right.
So follow the money.
Yeah, you got to follow the money when it comes to science sometimes. I like this one here. Science properly considers all evidence and arguments. See, if you can't consider all arguments, then there's something wrong with that science. And this pseudoscience does it, and this is what's happening right now. We cherry pick only favorable evidence, and then relies on institutional testimonials or work evidence. Like they cherry pick the certain parts of evidence. So it's like
confirmation bias.
Yeah, so it becomes a confirmation bias. So you become biased about certain parts of the evidence of a certain scientific principle.
Just like me right now, right? Because I'm dressed like a 70s rocker, I see everybody as a 70s rockers.
Yeah. So, and anyways, you can see the rest of them here on I've spent a lot of time on this, but I felt like scrolling up and down on some of the different points of pseudoscience and real science so that people out there can actually be more critical. That's my biggest problem about science right now, is that people are become so.
Well, it's easy, man. It's easy. If you have one answered word for everything, people like to live in that world. I wouldn't myself. I like to be always challenged. But people like, because just having like an answer for everything and somebody telling you what to do. Like living with Papa and Mama your whole life. It's probably nice and safe, but it doesn't really help you grow. And not growing,
I know.
Humanity doesn't grow, right?
And then people who cry like, "Oh my God, he wrote back to me negatively." I'm like, what has gone wrong with people? People have no skin at all. As a gay man, I have tough skin. I'm going to tell you right now, as a gay man, I have tough skin because I've been called this and they called that and been called that, and I'm like,
I have tough skin too, and I'm not gay, and I have tough skin too.
Like people call me a fucker, and I'm going, oh,
yeah, I know,
I'm so offended. Yeah, ooh. I mean, and then like they call me this, they call me that, and I'm like, guys, it doesn't kill me anymore. Like, like really, like get over it. Like, and nothing really faints me. Like I come down to a point where I just don't care. And people say, do you not read your criticism on YouTube or on Twitter? I said, no, I don't have time for that.
How is that word? Sticks and stones?
We break my bones, but words won't never hurt me.
That's right.
That's right.
People